taking charge of your own life, being responsible for your own life. This is a rare thing in existence because people act from their feelings and they think that's being responsible for their life. But then it is the feelings being responsible for the life because the feelings make the decision instead of the intelligence that you are. And feelings are emotions. There is no good feeling. If you have a good feeling, then you are going to have a bad feeling. Because in this existence exists on opposites. For every good feeling, there's a bad feeling. For every up, there's a down. And everyone's struggling to get ups all the time. To have ups as an enduring thing. And you can't have that. Because if you have an up, you have a down. But the world doesn't know that, because I haven't heard the psychologists speaking about that. I haven't heard them telling the people that. Because they also have their ups and their downs. So you see, the human condition is based on endeavouring to be happy. And as soon as you endeavour to be happy, there is a reflex action that's going on in your psyche that is going to bring the endeavour to be unhappy. But can you accept this that I say? Is it true in your experience? Well, it's very difficult for people to see it because we live as human beings attached to everything that we do, acting out of our emotions and our feelings. We have a momentum going on all the time in which we even forget the bad times because we're so busy trying to be happy that we forget that our bad times came from something that pleased us 2 years ago, such as the people that you've heard are having trouble with their partners or their lovers, and which you will hear more about before the end of the 7 days. Once, when they first came together, it was so beautiful, it was so lovely. And then it started to slip because what was beautiful was taken for granted that love is beautiful. Well, true love is beautiful, but not imagined love, not love without intelligence is not beautiful at all. It's only beautiful for a while, and then you have to pay the price of a downer, depression, uncertainty about your lover or your own life. And when you get down here in depression, what do? What can human nature do when you've got a depression? Well, you can get drunk, as we see on the movies. The thing is to get drunk. You can do that, but then that's no good because that gives you an upper. And the next day you got a downer. So then you've got to have another upper and a downer. So then you get into the drug situation where you take an upper and then because you're so high on an upper, you'll be asking for a downer, a pill for a downer to stop you from going too far. So you get a downer. And this is how humanity lives, on drugs and everything. Because on heroin or any drug, not that I've taken it, but it doesn't matter because it all applies, you get an up and then you've got to come down. And so it is with human love. It's so lovely to begin with, and it's so beautiful, as I've heard so many, many times. But then I know that don't worry, it's going to be a downer. Oh, perhaps not tomorrow, perhaps not next week, but next month. Or see you in 3 months' time and see. Because we live off uppers. And when we're down, we struggle to get an upper. Because we haven't learned the truth of life. Or the truth of living. So what's the enlightened truth of this, Barry? The enlightened truth is that the only truth, the only fulfillment, is never to be excited, which means never to be depressed. That's the truth. That's the only way of living in this existence without being torn up and pulled down. Torn up, pulled up, torn down. Having to pay for yesterday's excitement. Now, it is a great truth that everything that you once wanted, you now do not want. Because once when you wanted it and got it, it wasn't long before you didn't want it, because that is the natural dynamic of this existence. You get what you want, you get the promotion, it's all champagne and cheers and parties. We've got a promotion, look at the money we got. Won't be long before there's a downer. Too much work, can't handle it, got a rotten boss. Downer. Get a new job, upper. Won't be long before it's downer. Unhappy. Get a new lover, upper. Won't be long before it's downer. Or, worst of all, boredom, familiarity. It goes like that. But that's not equilibrium, is it? Boredom and familiarity represents probably 70 or 80% of the partnerships of men and women as they grow old together with their families and all the rest of it. Boredom, utter and complete boredom. Nobody's loving, everybody's pretending to love each other, getting together on birthdays, Christmas days, and all the rest of it. Everybody pretending to love each other. A whole lot of old crap, based on sentiment, sympathy, and wrong love, attachment. So, when they die, there will be a period of mourning where you won't be able to do your work, or you won't be able to love, or you won't be able to be light and easy because someone died. And when you get over that, if you do, then something else happens. Whereas the enlightened state, as I say, is never to be excited by anything, nothing. So therefore, never to be depressed by anything. But we live off ups and downs, don't we? We're all trying to be happy, not knowing that if you try to be happy, you get unhappiness. Whatever you wanted yesterday and got, you don't want. It won't be long before you don't want it. And you should examine your life to see what you wanted and got that you don't really want it now. You should look at that. Because this is an exercise, being with me is an exercise in self-knowledge, surely. And how much of the human race lives off uppers and then downers struggling to get upper again. Or familiarity and casualness between men and women. Who then want friends to compensate for the lack of love in themselves. And have friends, many friends, dot round like a sparrow, going from friend to friend, have a chat here, a chat there, exchange some useless information. Indulge yourself and then wonder why you can't sleep or you get unhappy and your mind won't stop. Well, how can your mind stop if you keep jumping around from this one to that one, on the phone, meeting here, meeting there, jumping here, jumping there? That's your mind. Your mind's going to have that reflex action. It won't be able to stop. What can I do, Barry? Well, I suggest you get your life right. Because if your life's not right, then you're going to jump around. Now, I'm asking everybody here, and I know I've heard it so often, my life is right, when it's certainly not right. What do you mean by your life right? I mean, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. That nobody anymore puts anything on you. Because you don't have relationships with mother and father and children and all the rest of it that put things on you and make demands on you. You don't have any of that anymore because you've got it right with them. Now, is your life right, or are you vulnerable? Are you dependent on something or someone? While you are dependent on someone or something, they are going to fail you. Obviously, because they might die tonight. And dependence means attachment. And so then this invisible attachment, arm of attachment, emotional tentacle, that you used to hang on to that attachment as some sort of love or need. When the object disappears, what's it do? It looks round furiously. It's a psychic thing, you see. It looks round furiously to try and find an object, and it can't, so it's terribly unhappy, and it knows a terrible shrinkage going on, a shrinkage, which is the pain that you feel inside of you when somebody dies, because the emotional attachment is shrinking, because there's nothing to hang on to there. And so we have to go through pain. But what we do then is think about the loved one. Think about the one who's missing. And that gives this emotional attachment some vitality. My thoughts, my beautiful energy, intelligence given to thoughts about something that is dead and gone forever gives this vitality. And so the tentacle goes out in an imagination of objective thought, which is the image of the loved one, or photographs of them, and all the rest of the rubbish. And so you feed this thing with your own beautiful vitality, and then you wonder why you get tired. You wonder why you get fatigued. That is not caused by physical degeneration. But is that the truth? That is the truth. So is your love right? Is your life right? That's it. Is your life right, or are you dependent? Or can you be in partnership and just love your partner? Just love, without feelings. I mean, everybody's looking for feelings in their relationships because that's what we're being taught. You know, cards, thinking of you, love you, and all the rest of this rubbish. A card never loved anyone, and words never loved anyone either. Words are for poseurs when you talk about love. How many women have been misled? I love you. I love you. But nobody ever thought to say, but do you love me enough? What do you mean by enough? Well, would you give up all your emotionality for me? Would you give up your anger? In other words, would you die for me? Would you die to yourself? But then you've got to be pretty strong to be able to say that, haven't you? Haven't you? But what is it? What is love? Do you know what love is? I'll tell you what love is. Love is to die. Love is to die to myself. Not to die for some woman or man, but to die to my anger, to die to my doubts, to die to my sad, sad story, to die to my fears that are inside this body until I die to them. Only then can I really love a woman, by being love. So do you love enough, man, to die for woman, or are you going to use her and just get casual and familiar and wish you were somewhere else? Well, I'm only asking the questions, aren't I? So I'm asking you, is your life right? Are you being manipulated? Are you being manipulated by yourself that thinks that you are lonely? It is the thought of loneliness, that I am lonely, which is pathetic self-love. Are you putting up with a situation in a partnership where somebody says, I love you? Have you ever asked them, do you love me enough to die? To die to your anger. To die to your independence. So man finds it very hard to die to his independence. For his independence is what feels threatened as soon as he gets close to any woman that he starts to love, where love starts to appear. He gets terrified of losing his independence. And so he fights and backs back and won't go all the way. And therefore he preserves his independence. And so he's missed the chance to love once more. But then a woman, she has to give up dependence on her emotions, her feelings, which she substitutes for love. Woman's feelings are what she substitutes for love. And her feelings are dependence on something. Dependence on her own feelings, which she thinks is love. Not true. The only love in woman is what I have described. The only real love is the divine intelligence of the female, who has the body of a woman made of time and experience, as we all know. But the female is spontaneous. Nobody can emulate the female. It just becomes phony, like the models on the whatever they call that walk that they walk down. All phony. Phony, trying to be female, trying to present the idea of female, especially to sexual man. All trying to be female. You can't. Female is spontaneous. It appears in the eyes in 1 second. It appears in the look of the eyes. It appears in the wave of the hair. It appears in the way she might lean this way, just for a minute. It appears there. The female is showing herself spontaneously, not by any intention, which is called flirtation, which is a poseur. But it just appears. It's spontaneous. You have no control over it. If you try to control it, you ruin it and you become the woman that you are, a poseur or an actor. So it's a holy thing. Holy means out of my control. But what it comes down to is being in control of your life, being in charge of your life. So I have to ask you to look at it. Are you dependent on anything? Are you being manipulated by a mother or a father? Are you being manipulated by children? Are you being manipulated by a drug? By alcoholism? Are you being manipulated by it? Because all those things, all drugs are manipulative. You can't take drugs and love a woman. Why, Barry? Because the drug is your first love, and woman doesn't like to be second love. So every woman who goes with an alcoholic or a drug taker, marijuana, any woman who goes with them, you got a failed situation. You know what marijuana, where it comes from? It comes from Mary Jane. It comes from the Latin, the Spanish or something, for Mary Jane. Or Mary Jane. Mary Jane, I think it is. Marijuana, Mary Jane. Now, Mary Jane is obviously a woman. So if a man's addicted to Mary Jane and can't stop smoking the bloody stuff, you got a Mary Jane there, which he loves because he can't stop smoking it. He can't stop fucking her. And are you going to put up with that? Do you think you're going to change that? No, you're not. He's got another love. And if it's alcohol, and you put up with it, and you're sorry for him and you're going to change him, forget it. Alcoholics Anonymous might change him, because that's impersonal. But you're not impersonal enough to change an alcoholic. So alcoholics is just a substitute for the situation to give you strength. So are you dependent on someone or something that will manipulate you? I don't know how to ask you, because if I ask someone, we're going to get a sad story or something, and I don't want to get a sad story. I'd like to get an example of someone who's dependent on something. Is there a man here who's dependent on something that's been manipulated? Yeah, okay. This'll be good.
Maybe not.
It'll be good for me to hear you, what you've got to say. Yeah, go ahead.
Just smoke tobacco.
Ah, well, what can I say? I smoked tobacco for 15 years. What can I say? I drank booze for 20 years. What can I say? They say you can't be all together while you even smoke tobacco, and especially if it reminds you of drugs. If you've taken drugs before, then the tobacco is going to excite the drugs, because it takes a long time for drugs to get out of the body, remembering that the body is a battery, a storage place. And so drugs that you take, even in your youth, if you take cigarettes, it's likely to disturb either the symptoms of having taken the drug or the desire for the drug rather than just the cigarettes. But fair enough, I mean, I just had to give it up. So both of them, drink and... So I can't condemn anyone, and I'm not condemning anyone, I'm just asking you to see it. I've told you before, haven't I, how I gave up smoking?
Yes, a woman asked you to.
Yeah, I was at a dance, at a party in my own home, and I was dancing with a lovely lady, and of course smoking my head off, like a journalist, and she said, "Phew, vile cigarettes." And so, by the grace of my self-knowledge, I took charge of my life and said, I shall never smoke again from that moment. And I told everyone, I think I must have stopped the music and everything, and told everyone I shall never, ever smoke again. Now, the trick there is, of course, quite psychological. Because then you can't sneak a smoke in front of any of your mates. Because you've told them all around the office and everywhere, I shall never smoke again. Oh, yeah, we know. We've heard that before, haven't we? Yeah, okay, I'll never smoke again. So you can't sneak one in the toilet. You can't ask someone, you can't carry any around, because they'd say, what are you carrying that around for? Because usually people who give up smoking say, well, I might take it up again, but I'm giving it up for now. You know, always an excuse. So I found the best way out was snip it, because the self does not like to be caught out, to be weak. So a little bit each way, you know. I might give it up, I might not. The same with emotion, same with your anger. Oh, but I got a good reason to be angry. There's no good reason to be angry. None whatever. So go ahead, I've forgotten your name. Mark, go ahead, Mark.
Well, there's not much to say about it. I've looked at it every which way, and I've given it up here and there. And And here I am, smoking.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing a good job, Mark. I think you've changed. I think Tova really did a good job on you.
Tuva, yeah.
Tova, is it? I think she did a good job.
You think so,
Yeah, I think you really suffered. By the way, just in case you're attached to her still in any way, she's got a lovely boyfriend.
yeah? I know that.
You know that, good.
I'm
good.
not attached to her.
You're not attached to her, yeah. I like to tell people. I like to tell people that others have got a lovely boyfriend, and especially do I love to say, and they are, in their sexual life, they are doing all the things that you used to do together, plus some others that you never thought of. And they are. Now, you can't remain attached because the suffering is so great. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Why'd you mention that? You know, because the mind then will picture all sorts of stuff, won't it? And torture you until you say, I've had enough. I've had enough. And disown yourself, your own jealousy. But of course, you've got to go through it to disown it. You can't stand back here and say, well, I'm not getting involved, so I'm not going to be jealous. You can't do that, because that's not living. Living is to go through it all, to have had the experience. Because I've experienced jealousy in my younger days. Of course I have. Otherwise, how could I talk about it? And boozing and cigarettes. And all the rest of it, anger, all that I've been through. Yeah, you can't be guru and have held back from living. You just can't do that. Otherwise, how are you going to talk to the people with any authority? That's why professors and those sort of people, it's a worldly thing, doing examinations and things and learning philosophy and learning this and learning that. It's unreal. But then this is an unreal world where unreal values have the most value. What counts is, am I in this body, in this divine temple? Am I in this body listening to these words? Am I free from manipulation by myself? Am I free of manipulation by anybody? In other words, have I overcome fear? Because fear is the father of manipulation. The fear of what people will say. The fear of what people will think of me. The fear of being a failure. The fear of being honest. That's what we're talking about, aren't we? Because you can't be guru and still be fearful. Like those tantric masters that we hear about up in Tibet and all around the place. Absolute fearful. They're not tantric masters at all. They're afraid. They keep their tantric love hidden, their loving of their students hidden, so that nobody hears about it. Because they're afraid of what people will say. The tantric master is not afraid of anything. How could he be? He couldn't make woman love God if he was afraid. But man, the way he is, usually leaves women in greater doubt about God or love or truth or something. Because he loves her mostly with his sexuality or not enough love. And she gives into it because she is love. Fundamentally, she just loves man. But not the man who's still emotional, not the man who still loves himself. No room for three in the bed. But am I making sense? That's the important thing. So, okay, thank you, Mark. Anything else you want to say?
No.
No, good, Mark. I'm glad to see you nice and quiet there and you don't have any doubts and fears. And I think you're doing a good job there. I haven't read your last 2 letters. I got one as soon as I came here, and I got one today. So you're writing yourself out. That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, I got a bit of time for Mark. He writes me great long letters, but that's because he's getting rid of whatever's inside of him, and the one way to do that is to write me letters. I might not read them if they're too long, because I don't like long letters. But I do like it when I know someone's really getting it out. And you can hardly read his writing anyway, because he's going so fast. But he's been through a bit lately, or a bit for a while. He used to blame me. I don't think he blames me now, do you?
No.
No, I don't think. See, he's quiet. He's quiet. He's quiet now. He called me a nasty old codger. I didn't mind the nasty. Good, Mark, thank you. Anyone else want to tell me whether no, I don't want to hear any story. He told me a good story then, didn't we? So we didn't get delayed on it. Anyone want to say it? A man, the problem, Yeah, we don't want to get into sad stories. Any woman like to talk to me without a sad story, if that's possible. Okay, you've got to take charge of your life. That means nobody ever manipulates you again. Well, I know it might take a bit of time to get out of it, but you have to know the rudiments of it, the essentials of not being manipulated. Such as if anyone try to manipulate you to make a demand on you. Makes a demand, because demand is a manipulation, an attempt at manipulation. You cannot have demands put on you, because that's manipulation. Is someone demanding something from you and you are giving into it? That's a question. You'll never be happy and you'll never be free while you have demands on you. Now, it's a different matter. If you're loving a man or woman, whichever you are, and the other is, let's say, emotional, but they love you enough to keep dying to their self, to their emotion, that's different. They will try to manipulate you, and that's where you have to bring your strength in and not be manipulated, not respond, not give them anything. And of course that drives people mad when you don't give them anything. It's like an argument. If you don't join in the argument, the arguer gets more and more furious. That is the way of emotion, to make you argue. You've noticed that in partnerships in the past, haven't you? If you don't argue, they'll throw everything at you to bring you down and make you eventually surrender to their demand that you exchange an argument with them. That's manipulation. And the question is, what are you doing with such a person? Unless you are in control. Unless you're able to say, stop, or I will leave you. Stop now, or I will leave you this moment now. But if you are attached to the person, it makes it very difficult to do that. So the thing is to be able to love the one that you're with without attachment. Very difficult for the human condition, because the human condition lives off attachment and sentiment and sympathy. Can you love without attachment? Well, the only thing you can learn to love is to love God first, to love the inexplicable, to love the unknown. If you love that first, then that will purify what's in your body, purify your mind, purify your emotions, dissolve them. Purification is to dissolve what's there. Only the love of God can do that, or terrible pain. or terrible love. Now, if you happen to ever, you men, if you ever happen to love a woman with a terrible love, it will be the love of God that you're seeing in this woman. You're seeing the God in the woman, the real female. And you love that with a wonderful, freeing love. And then she leaves you. Then the suffering is enormous. But that suffering is good because you were attached to her, or you wouldn't suffer. You didn't just love her. You had conditions of your own in your love. And now you must suffer because you had conditions in your love. So it works like that, you see. So, okay, who wants to ask a question, please, so that we can get something straight here? I feel as though I might be talking in circles. Am I or not? Am I making any sense here? Am I? Yes, come down to Ruth first, please. Sometimes you get this, you get this sense that I'm not making any sense to anybody.
You are making sense, Karen.
Am I?
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yes.
Thanks for the reassurance. That's great. Okay. Thank you, Ruth.
I was just going to say that you make enormous sense, and in my life, I can see that in my love life, it's straight, and I can be straight and honest through the inspiration of your teaching. But when I go out into the world, I can see there's a compromise in dealing with people with whom I have no agreement, to be honest.
Yes.
So in work or even with my family, I'm not in charge because I'm still making myself, I'm being manipulated by myself in order to get along with them.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, because as long as you can compromise with people, but you mustn't compromise with yourself. So getting along with people is a continuous compromise. Such as when I meet people, I'm not necessarily guru. If I milk the milkman, I'm saying, okay, I owe you. Nice day, isn't it? Lovely day? Yeah, just the wife just left me. Did she really? Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's not too good, is it? Yeah. Okay, then. Well, here's a 7 and 6, whatever it is. See you later, right. I'm not trying to teach him anything, because I'm not compromising with me. I'm compromising with the man who, he's not asking for anything except the money and to tell me about his broken life. That's all right for a minute. I don't mind that. But I won't compromise with myself.
I understand, but I think there's times when I'm still being nice, where I could be stronger, I could be...
Okay. And is this at work?
In work, and even with my immediate family who have...
Oh, well, immediate family, you've got to be pretty straight with them, because they'll manipulate you. And they're emotional, and their emotions will try to put demands on you. And there you have to get it straight. Mm-hmm. Have you got it straight with your mum and dad? Or your mum, or whoever it is?
Yeah, I have, and they would still, through lack of understanding, try to put something on me. But I do say they know where I think they know where I'm coming from.
Good. As long as you tell them, and you've got to tell them every 24 hours, You're no good telling someone and say, I told them. You've got to tell emotional people every day what you're saying, because emotional people can't hear. So the next day when you come in, they're still treating you the same as they were yesterday when you had to tell them. So you tell them again, look, I'm living a life without giving in to my emotions and without giving in to emotional demands, and that's the life. And I love you, but I will never give in to your emotional demands if you make them of me. But otherwise, I love you, and I love to be with you and to hug you and to give you kisses and hugs and to say, how are you and what a beautiful day it is. Now, I love that. So the next time you go and see them, they're saying, I've been thinking about what you said, and I think it's very unloving of you. Oh, here we go again. So I'm going to tell you what I'm living now, because you can't tell me about my life. You can only tell me that that's hurtful to you. And if it's hurtful to you, you better examine your life, because you've got an expectation in you that I should behave in a certain way. And you can't have that with me. So you tell them that day. And it goes on and on. Have you noticed?
My mother says ever since I met you, I've become cold.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yes, that's true. So is your mother here?
No,
And
no.
we'll deal with her if she's here.
No.
And quite nicely, I'm quite civil, aren't I? Well, am I civil? I just, you know. You see, cold means I'm not giving in to demands, emotional demands, and I'm not giving into emotional love, and I'm not giving into emotional expectations. They're all warm and heated, and they get hotter and hotter. You know, that's hotter and hotter. Whereas they think that being straight is cold because they live off the heat of emotions. So good. What else do you want to say?
That's it. Just that I see there is fear. That's all. Fear
Well, I understand.
of not being understood or being...
Fear of not being understood at work or where?
The fear... fear, I suppose, of being rejected by people for
Yes, but I think what you've got to face is that if you are living a straight life, then people are not going to understand that unless you tell everybody at work. You've heard me say this before, haven't you? Mm. To all your workmates, look, I'm living a life endeavouring to get rid of my emotional fears and doubts. Now, this doesn't mean that this has got any effect on you, but I can't join in any emotional things. I can't join in, so please don't think I mean anything against you, but this is the way I'm living. I'm not suggesting you do it. This is just for me. Something like that you've got to say to people. Then they might think you're odd, etc., but at least they know, because you've been honest with them, that you can't join in all this talk about the past and all the rest of it. But it's very difficult. I understand. So you just keep being true to what you're being true to as best you can. And you have to compromise with people in situations, but you don't compromise with yourself. And there is a distinction between the two. Okay? Now there was someone over here wanted to just pass it back to the lady there. I forget people's names even though I've spoken to you.
Jenny.
Jenny, yes, Jenny.
I heard you say before when we were talking about being up and being down, to be excited and then to be let down was not the way to live, and the best way to live was to keep an even keel. Is that right?
That is so.
Yeah. I feel I've never really been high. I've never really been depressed, and I feel that I'm missing out on something. I feel like my life is boring.
But then...
It's safe, but it's not...
Yeah, but perhaps it's not the equilibrium I'm talking about.
Right.
This equilibrium I'm talking about is to have such a love for something else that is inexplicable, that any excitement is just so far beneath it that it's not worthwhile. And any depression is certainly impossible in such a love. So I am talking about having lived, and I'd say you're a woman who's lived. Haven't you? You've had numerous lovers, haven't you?
Not many.
No, okay, but several.
Yeah.
You've been with man, haven't you?
I've been married for 27 years, so I can't say that was joyous.
Well,
And I have 3 children.
and that's hardly joyous, except when they are, when it is
Yes.
joyous. 27 years you were married. Are you still married?
No.
What made you end it?
My 25th wedding anniversary, I suddenly had this realisation that I wasn't going to have another 25 years of that.
Well, you seem to me a woman who's got a pretty good grasp of things from my talk to you before. Yeah, but boredom only comes from the lack of seeing the sky and the skis and the rain and all the things that you can't own. The delight of just being in your senses rather than in yourself. Boredom comes from thinking that you're missing out, really. So you might have a sense looking around you that everybody's so happy or in good partnerships and they're all having a good time. Not true. That's the appearance of things here. You know, everybody thinks, oh, and all the models and everyone and all the film stars, so pretty and so that, but it's not true. They're all unhappy, and rarely, and when they are happy, or let's say they are happy, they settle for some sort of compromise, which has got not enough God in it. Because where there's not enough God, there's compromise with yourself.
Yes.
So I think it seems to me anyway that you can have the joy, you've got to love the unnameable more. And I think you can do that. I think you already do that. Because this is an enlightened state. You've never been excited, never been depressed. It has to be, you see, because it's a holy state. It's having no fear inside of you. It's having nothing arising. Now, nothing arising means no emotions, no doubts, no fears, no self-judgment, no wanting to be liked. Well, we all like to be liked, but not being cared if we don't not liked. It's not the caring about it. We all like to be liked. We all like to speak joyously to people. We all like to communicate. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's when we're afraid of being rejected. That is not holy. And so having nothing arising is to have no judgments in you. Because a judgment of anyone which has any emotional content in it is unholy. And as you've often heard me say, that wonderful man, Jesus, whoever he was, who loved God, when someone said to him, he said, judge not another. And this fellow said, oh, Christ, Jesus, you're judging everyone, left, right and centre. And Jesus says, yes, but my judgments are right. Now, how do the Christians describe that? They describe that because he's supposed to be God. It's not true. His judgments were right because he didn't have any condemnation, malice, or attachment to them. So he was able to see things straight and just say, that is not right, without attachment, without fear. So his judgments are right. Very rare. People don't understand what Jesus said, or whoever wrote it. The Christians don't know it. Like I come with a sword to separate mother from daughter-in-law, father from son. I come with a sword to render them all apart. We don't hear much of that, do we? As far as the Christians are concerned, I think that's the devil. That's what Jesus said, because the only way in this existence is to have your attachments broken between mother and father, mother and son. Between attachments we're talking, not love. To have attachments broken. But the Christians can't face those things because it doesn't concur with their sweet image of Jesus. Yes, what else do you want to say?
Nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who else wants to tell me something? Okay, this lady over here, please. I think I've spoken to you before. Forgotten the name? Who is it?
It's Helen.
Helen, yes. Helen.
You were saying about compromise and being true to yourself, and there was a distinction. Could you say a bit more about that? Because I didn't really understand it.
Well, being true to yourself. No, I didn't say being true to yourself. I said not compromising with yourself. It is the way of the world to say, I must love myself, for instance. And if you love yourself, then you're in real trouble, because yourself is a pain in the neck. And if you love a pain in the neck, you get more pains in the neck. So no, I said it is not wise to compromise with yourself, but you have to compromise with people and situations. Don't you? Driving in the traffic is a compromise all the time. You have to give way, which is a compromise, isn't it?
Yeah. I had a situation recently when my friend's father died and he used to beat her and she was always moaning about him. He was pretty nasty to her. And when he died, she said to me, oh, he was such a good man. And it was like stuck in my throat. I wanted to say, well, you're well rid of him, you know. And,
Yes.
and I felt, I didn't want to be nasty or cruel, but I just felt I was being totally dishonest in sort of listening and saying, well, yes, yes. Well, I didn't actually say he was a good man, but I found it a very difficult situation because I actually wanted to say, well, you're well rid of him, in my book.
Yeah, but why didn't you ask her? Didn't you say, why couldn't you say to her, but you told me that he used to beat you?
Yeah, I just couldn't, I think because it was about death and she was very upset, I just felt
Yes,
stuck.
fair enough. At any rate, best to get out of that situation, not listen to people's sad stories about death. How, what a good man he was. God, they all think he was a good man, isn't it? At every graveside, don't they say? I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. That's what the good old Shakespeare, who was one of the great gurus of the Western world. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. But everyone goes and instead of burying him, they praise him, don't they? At the graveside, how good he was. He's probably the biggest bastard on earth. But so it's just, that is compromise with yourself. You shouldn't be there. If you don't, if there was goodness in the man, I mean, you can be honest, can't you, at the graveside? You can say, well, he was a bastard to many people. But you can say that. And he was a bastard to me at times. But he was, strangely enough, a good man. And I'll tell you why he was a good man. Because if he's a good man, you've got to say why. Because I know that people did not know, but I knew, that he helped people many, many ways. With his money, with his position, with his influence, he was able to help people, as he was able to manipulate them. So I got to say that about him, that he was a good man in that sense and the other sense, as far as I'm concerned. He treated people dreadfully. Well, now that would be a bit of honesty, wouldn't it? And that's everyone. Nobody is good. As Jesus said, only God is good. Why call me good? Okay. So I suppose we can't go on for dinner now. No, we've got to stop now. Unless someone had some pressing question that they wanted to ask before we finish this day. Because I understand I won't be with you tomorrow morning, except on the screen. Okay, but I'll be with you tomorrow afternoon, my self-knowledge willing, because my self-knowledge is God. And your God is your self-knowledge. That's what self, capital S, realization is, the realization of your own self-knowledge. And anyone who cannot love God doesn't yet have sufficient power of their own self-knowledge. Because all you can love, all you're loving, is your own self-knowledge. Isn't that justice? That really, God is myself. But not myself that's this ugly little thing that gets angry and fearful. But my own being, deeper than my being, this capital S self, is my God, which I am underneath all the misconceptions I have. So that's justice. Well, okay then, so Kate? A video tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Thank you all, and I'll see you personally tomorrow afternoon, I trust. And I hope you enjoy, I trust you'll enjoy the video. Thank you all.